It is that time. It is the fantasy overtime. I am Zach Lyons. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. We have Justin Graver of at Titans Film Room. We are ready for your fantasy questions. You can put them into the chat. Make sure to differentiate. Easy for me to say. Differentiate. Whether it's PPR, standard, half-point PPR, we need to know the scoring system. We got to be able to give you the best fantasy advice because I don't know if you were here last week, but we are the most accurate fantasy football live show that streams at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time in the world. The world. We are 98.7% accurate on all of our sit starts, so we are ready for you guys. We have our NFL behind here, so you can see some highlights, see some updated news. Justin, what burning questions do you have about fantasy today?
My burning questions are, do I play all the Dolphins or do I only play some of the Dolphins, wondering if they're going to blow out the Jets so bad that they don't have to go put up more points?
I mean, obviously you got to play Devontae Parker. He has a good matchup against Pierre Desir this week. Got to play him. Mike Gesicki, I don't know. I think there's a possibility for a red zone touchdown, but I'm not really too sure. Myles Gaskin, that's a unique one because we know that they were actively pursuing
Lev
Bell, which is crazy to me because they've spent so much money on running backs so far in Jordan Howard, in Matt Breida, that they want to spend more money when Myles Gaskin is outperforming even Le'Veon Bell so far. It's crazy. But Myles Gaskin is still the man there right now, so let's roll with Myles Gaskin, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Devontae Parker. That is let me soothe your burning question that way. So don't forget, for everybody, put your questions in the chat. We are ready for you. And let me ask you this, Justin. I'll start off the questions. I have my own question. Standard League, Damian Harris or Laviska Shenault? Who should I go with?
In the flex. That isn't in the flex, rawr. That is a tough call because I feel like Damian Harris is going to be so unpredictable today. I think his usage is likely to be like the lead back and the game script. If you just look at the Vegas point total, like they're expected to run away with the game. So you'd think Damian Harris has a pretty good shot at a touchdown and a decent day rushing, but Shenault going up against the Lions defense, I feel like he has a great matchup too. And I think that the Jaguars right now, they're leading the league in passing attempts. Did not expect that to be the case, but the Jaguars are throwing the ball all over the yard. So I would probably actually lean towards Shenault just because Damian Harris' situation seems a little bit murky. I'm interested in it, but I'm kind of wait and see on it.
Well, Shenault is going into the flex position based on your information. Don't forget, if you are in the chat, not only to put your question, but also to share the show. Go down to the retweet, you'll see it, or go down to the three dots and share it that way. We will put your questions live, and we will answer them live. So here we go. We're going to start off with Speedway Soccer. The soccer guys are having a really good live show that everybody needs to set their alerts for. Which two to start in full point PPR? Robert Woods, Mike Evans, Mecole Hardman, or N'Keal Harry?
Well, I think you have to go with Robert Woods and Mike Evans in that situation. Mecole Hardman, I mean, you're hoping he catches a long touchdown. N'Keal Harry, I'm not super high on as a player, even though he does seem to be getting a lot of usage in New England. So Robert Woods, I mean, he's clear number one target of his quarterback, and so is Mike Evans.
Yeah, you got to play your studs. Mecole Hardman, N'Keal Harry. I know N'Keal Harry is starting to build some rapport, but let's settle down on that game. We were talking before the break that the Denver-New England game is kind of a game that we're a little out on from a fantasy perspective. So you got to play your studs. Mike Evans, Robert Woods. With Chris Godwin back is actually a good thing for Mike Evans because that frees him up a little bit more. So Woods and Evans, easy to start those two. Next up, from Moose, Damian Harris or Adrian Peterson. And I'll start off and I'm going to go. I know we just said, that we are out on this game, but I am taking Damian Harris over Adrian Peterson, no doubt. What about you?
I am too, but kind of like hesitantly because I do think the Jacksonville run defense is horrible and the Lions may have a chance to do this. But like even if they build up a lead, is it going to be an Adrian Peterson game or are they going to try to work in their younger guys and like get them some reps? I'm probably not playing Adrian Peterson.
It is full point PPR, by the way.
That doesn't really swing the tide for these two guys.
Gotcha. I think I would go Damian Harris because I think he will see a little bit more targets out of the backfield. I really think coming out of the bye, we said this on the flex, that DeAndre Swift is going to be more featured at coming out of the bye in this offense. I think they are going to have spent the time restructuring some game plans to find a way to get him the ball. And I think you're going to start to see the slow disappearance of Adrian Peterson, who probably won't amount to much. So I think Damian Harris is the play there. Next up,
Fun
we
fact,
yes,
Lions are 7-1 against the spread coming off of their bye week in the last 8 years.
Oh, there you go.
They use
little gambling tidbit for you guys. Next up, we got Griffin, AJ Brown, or Devontae Parker, non-PPR.
That is a tough one because those are both of these guys are in such great situations today. The psychological factor of Devontae Parker wanting to stick it to Adam Gase might be a little overrated when it comes to fantasy here. So I think I'm probably going to go with AJ Brown. I think the Titans offense sets up so well to take advantage of what the Texans don't do well, which you can read about in my Scouting the Opponent Houston Texans article on BroadwaySportsMedia.com right now if you want to go check that out. But I do think the play action game over the middle, those Yankee plays with the deep crosser and the deep post are going to be working all day. They've been working against Houston all year, and that's AJ Brown's bread and butter. He was so good against the Texans last year. You've been waiting 4 weeks for him to be active and available in fantasy football. You got to roll with AJ Brown, right?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think AJ Brown and non-PPR I think is the way to go. If it was PPR, I'd swing a little bit towards Devontae Parker's way because he gets all the targets,
volume, yeah.
And AJ Brown does split targets with quite a few people on the offense, especially with Humpback as well. But I think the best chance for touchdown is probably AJ Brown, and the best chance for 100 yards is also AJ Brown. So I think that's the way you got to lean without the PPR to balance out your point scoring.
Right.
So next up, with Russell Wilson on bye, which is pretty sad to think about that we're not going to get a Seahawks offense tonight. Minshew, Cousins, or Mayfield? And I think I am going to go with Kirk Cousins. I know that you're a little scared of the Raheem Mostert.
Morris.
Oh, yeah, that guy too. Raheem Morris, you know, him being a new coach and him firing up the team and the team being great and all this stuff. Like you called them like Hall of Fame. They were going to go undefeated the rest of the way, I believe is what you told me before we started the show. But
the ultimate turnaround.
I mean, it's still a bad defense. There's nothing redeeming about this defense, and I think you have to roll out Kirk Cousins.
I think Minshew is the only one you're actually considering besides Cousins, because Mayfield against the Steelers and the Browns want to run the ball. Like, I'm not going to roll Mayfield out against the Steelers. Kirk Cousins against the Falcons defense, it's like the matchup that people have been targeting for the first month of the season. So I think that you're in a good spot there with Cousins, but Minshew could have a good day too, but he could also have a terrible day. So
we also haven't heard if DJ Chark is
He's active.
He is active? Okay. I hadn't seen that, so that's good to know. Okay, next up, Ryan. Terry McLaurin versus the Giants or CeeDee Lamb versus Arizona?
I am back in on Scary Terry. It's almost Halloween, baby. The Giants are horrible. Like, the Giants are really bad, and I know that we don't have no idea who Washington's quarterback situation is very up in the air, but coming off a week where he only had 2 catches, I feel like they have to go back to have to be dedicated to getting him the ball this week. CeeDee Lamb versus Arizona, I feel the opposite about. I feel like with Andy Dalton taking over the Cowboys, they might see him as a guy who can keep leading the offense the same way they've been running it, but they might think, oh, we need to kind of shell up, go conservative, run the ball, give it to Zeke, keep things easy for Andy Dalton. And if that happens, then there's just not going to be the same volume for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I'm a wait and see kind of guy on CD Lamb and Andy Dalton. And I really do think that this is a Michael Gallup game. I think that Andy Dalton is, for whatever reason, going to be targeting him like crazy. We saw when he came in last week, he was trying to go for Michael Gallup. It'll be interesting to see. Andy Dalton typically, though, force feeds a wide receiver. That we've seen it with AJ Green when he's playing. So is that going to be Amari Cooper or is that going to be Michael Gallup? We will see. But I would say Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry versus the New York Giants, hands down. He's got that speed that you're looking for against a very vulnerable defense in the New York Giants.
Definitely.
Ryan has another question. The other question is Gibson versus the Giants or Mixon versus F the Colts?
That is tough. That is really tough because I don't like Mixon's matchup at all, and I love Gibson's matchup. So you're like, do I play the guy who's coming off a not so great week? Mixon's coming off also not awesome week, but a pretty decent week last week against the Ravens when the Bengals got absolutely destroyed. So if they don't get absolutely destroyed, then you have to think Mixon's usage is going to be pretty high. Colts defense has been good, but they haven't played a lot of great competition. I think even though Gibson has a lot of upside, you still have to roll with Mixon.
I disagree. I'm going Antonio Gibson, and here's why. Just like I said about Terry McLaurin and the Giants' horrible slow defense, it's Antonio Gibson's going to take advantage of that too. His snap counts have gone up, his rushing attempts have gone up, and his targets have all gone up in the last few weeks. Now, he was held without a touchdown last week, but it's only the second time, or that's the first time since week 1 he hasn't found the end zone. So I think this is a great matchup for Antonio Gibson. I think that you're going to see him heavily involved. And even if the good thing about Antonio Gibson is even if they fall behind, he's still going to be out on the field more than likely. And I think that Joe Mixon, I think the Colts defense, again, is playing a really bad offensive line, and they're going to take advantage of it. Mixon is just so week to week volatile. And I just am so scared of him of playing Mixon when I have Antonio Gibson, who I know is probably going to find the end zone this week. I mean, I'm fairly confident. So I would roll out Antonio Gibson.
I don't hate it. I like both options.
So that is the last question. I will stall a little bit and talk about Manscaped. If you want, you can go to manscaped.com, get 20% off and free shipping using the code BroadwayTN. So our Twitter handle, BroadwayTN. If there's no other questions, kind of a quick and easy fantasy week, it seems, with the bye weeks hitting and pretty much people getting healthier. I feel like it's looking pretty good. You want to get into a little DFS?
Yeah, let's run through some of your DFS choices here.
Okay. I have to actually load more money into one of my DFS accounts, so I'm only in one game so far this week. I had a rough go last week. I went a little crazy, played a lot of lineups, did not work for me at all. So I will say this in one entry this week so far. I have Kirk Cousins with Justin Jefferson and Kyle Rudolph stack versus the Falcons. And then David Montgomery versus Carolina, Antonio Gibson versus the Giants, Juju Smith-Schuster versus Cleveland, Devontae Parker versus Miami, and James Robinson versus Detroit in the flex, and then the Dolphins defense.
I can dig that. You're kind of going against the chalk there with Jefferson instead of Thielen, but still taking the value of that offense. I'm into it. My best in terms of my number one lineup that I think is my Titans stack against the Texans defense. I'm fading Henry because he's going to be chalk this week, like crazy chalk. So I've got Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, Mike Davis against Chicago. I know Chicago's run defense is tough, but Mike Davis's usage is so good. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield even if they can't get anything going on the ground. Ronald Jones against Green Bay. I just think that at his price point, he's coming in to a good workload, even if Leonard Fournette is back. Packers defense hasn't been great this year. I like the idea of the Bucks trying to control the clock and keep Aaron Rodgers off the field by giving it to Ronald Jones. I got A.J. Brown and Kenny Galladay, Devontae Parker, Jonnu Smith at tight end with my Titans stat going. Calvin Ridley, I managed to squeeze into my flex against the Minnesota defense. And my defense is the Titans going up against Watson and the Texans, which I understand is a bold risk, especially with how the Titans defense played this year, but they were a lot better last week. So I'm taking a chance.
Let me ask you this. Over under. Will King Henry score 3 touchdowns today? Will it be 3? Let's put it at 2.5.
There you go. I would say under 2.5. He did have 3 the last time these two teams met, week 17, 2019. But we all know that the Titans were playing for a little bit more than the Texans. Hopefully we get at least one ling run on a toss play.
Yeah. One ling run on a toss play. And that will do it for the Fantasy Overtime because we're out of time on the Fantasy Overtime. I'm Zach Lyons. You can follow me at FWordsPod. He's Justin Graver. You can follow him at Titans Film Room. You probably already do because he has close to how many followers now?
Almost 15K.
Almost 15K. So if you don't follow him and let's get him to 15K. Oh, you can follow Broadway Sports and set those alerts to on at Broadway TN because you want those alerts on because we have the halftime show coming to you. It's the best halftime show out there that is going to be centered around what we've done wrong, what we've done good, and what we can change in the second half. And then after, make sure those alerts are live. We're going to have Justin Graver, Mr. Lebowski, Mike Herndon, Mike Miracles, Robert Greenlaw, Fantasy Roundtable. Sunday afternoon, Sunday night roundtable on Sunday afternoon, I guess is what we call it, but it's going to be awesome. After the game, best post-game show. It's going to be fun, energetic. We're going to love it. I'll be there. I'll be in the comments. I'm going to, comment around. So let's get to it. Let's get to it, guys. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you for coming. See you guys next week.